Just a friendly, think again. I watched Barca win 3-1 in the first game of the preseason. But what I actually noticed were ideas. Tactical ideas and clever adjustments. Now, ideas mean more unpredictability, because it's difficult for the opponents to prepare for what's to come. Ahead of the next season, that is crucial if we want to repeat the success we had. So in this video, I will break down what Hansi Flick did in each half, how he adjusted the system for specific player profiles, and why these details matter more than people actually think. Barca started with a strong lineup. Rafinha, Fermín López, Ferran Torres and Lamine Yamal were up front, a setup we have seen before. So the structure was clear. We used a 4-2-4 shape, with Fermín López acting almost as a second forward. However, one detail stood out. Fermín López kept on positioning himself closer to Lamine Yamal, and he did so for a specific reason. Fermín López was responsible for stretching the defense, giving Lamine Yamal space to go 1v1, cross or go for goal himself. In principle, it worked. We set up Lamine Yamal in several good positions, but he had a rare day off. In fact, he failed all of the 6 dribbles he attempted. On a normal day, you can expect Lamine Yamal to average about 4 to 5 dribbles, which means while the execution didn't land, the intention was good. On another day, we would have produced more with the same setup. Eric Garcia was the fullback, but instead of providing overlapping runs, he actually stayed more on the inside. Playing more towards the center of the pitch, he helped our counter pressure in case the ball was lost. This also gave Lamine Yamal more space to go 1v1 in isolated situations. So for the first half, our goal was to put Lamine Yamal in as many good positions as possible and leverage his individual X-factor. However, that was forced to change based on the substitutions made by Hansi Flick in the second half. This is also where it gets interesting in my opinion. On came players like Roony, Rashford and Joffre. New players, new profiles. We changed the entire team and adapted to a different but very interesting system. One designed to maximize the strength of other players. Hansi Flick showed what a top-class coach he is. Players are different, which means they need different surroundings to excel. For example, Lamine Yamal can beat his man in isolated 1v1 situations. He just has the ability to do so. Roony, on the other hand, can't do so at the same rate because he doesn't have the top-end speed. Hansi Flick knew that, so he adjusted the platform. Now, he did the same for Rashford and Joffre Torres as well. First of all, one of the midfielders started dropping into the backline. This was a change from the first half where the midfielders stayed higher up the pitch, and it was very deliberate from Hansi Flick. With the midfielder in the backline, the centre backs could push wider. Araujo and Christensen then had space and time to move the ball forward. Joffre and Koundé, who were the fullbacks, pushed higher up the pitch in response to it. This solved the isolation part with Roony. It gave him freedom to drop into pockets of space instead of just staying wide. He could combine and find solutions with teammates in close proximity, which leverages his strength, which is ball control and creativity. However, I would still argue that the most interesting part of this dynamic was the left side. Rashford and Joffre Torres actually played like they knew each other. Right from the start, they formed a strong connection. If you watched them closely, you would see that they performed one particular rotation which caused havoc. When a centre-back carried the ball forward, which most of the time was Christensen, Rashford would move inside. While doing this, Joffre Torres responded by moving high and wide. The fullback who marked Rashford could not track his movement because he had to worry about the run made by Joffre Torres in behind him. Rashford then became the free man and could be used to escape pressure or switch the play. He could also turn in the left half space and drive towards his defense where he is at his best. This move right here had even further consequences, which is worth exploring. Because Rashford moved inside from his left wing position, Dani Olmo could move more towards the right flank and play closer to Roony. If Rashford then chose to play the ball towards the middle where Casado was, Barca had a huge opportunity. Casado could choose to switch the ball to the opposite wing. If he chose to do so, Barca had generated a 2v1 overload against the fullback of Vissel Kobe using Dani Olmo and Roony. Two players with excellent technical qualities, but not the best long distance pace. In other words, a situation that suited both. Again, the goal was for Lamine Yamal to be isolated on the right flank in the first half, while it was literally the opposite in the second half. And Hansi Flick, he achieved this by applying small but decisive changes. So what stood out wasn't the result or the performance, but the ideas, especially when it came to how he used Rashford, Roony and the others. More ideas more unpredictability, and a Barca team that's far more difficult to prepare for. That is what this game taught me.